Welcome everyone. Happy to be here again with you into the week 03 of BeSA batch 06. Really happy and hopefully you would be enjoying the coming session. I just want to know that everyone can hear me fine and we do not have any lag or anything. So please just let me know what is your plan for today, what you plan to do. Probably it is late evening for some of you. I have planned to meet some friends in the evening time. What is your plan? What you plan to do today? Anyone? Anyone doing something exciting? Maybe climbing Mount Everest or something? I'll wait. There will be a little delay between what I speak and what you hear in a minute. So I'll just see what people's plans are today and would be having. Volume is okay. That's good. And while we discuss these things, I'll learn a lot. That is a good one, Cynthia. I will add other people. So we have Prasad today with us. Then we have Parna, and we also have Shashank. So
Hi.
we will continue with the session Diwali festival in East Brunswick. That is good one. Rajesh, we have similar type of stuff in UK, but it will be happening next week. So yeah, that is true. And I'm going to order some sweets. Obviously, that can be skipped. So football. Okay, that's good. So we will continue. We will first go with the technical track, and we will discuss about Amazon Bedrock, which is a very important service if you are planning for certification. And Bedrock can be one of these things which most people start interacting with initially. If you are not coming from that deep machine learning background, that is a good starting point to understand how machine learning works, right? So we would have Shashank and Parna lead the session today. Biryani, please, no sweets. Sonam, sweets cannot be ignored. You cannot feel Diwali vibe without sweets. Without sweets, so it doesn't make sense. Biryani is fine. I welcome that, but yeah. So I'll add Shashank and Parna. They would continue, and we would be in background, Prasad and me, and we would answer your question. And let's hear from Shashank. He would be acting today as a AWS consultant, and Parna would be a curious customer who would be asking so many questions. We saw sometimes people were saying in the last meeting that we are missing Parna's question. So here we are. Let's start again. Thank you. Over to you, Parna and Shashank.
Thanks, Ashish, and thanks, Prasad. Hey, hi, Shashank. So great to have you here. I have a lot of questions about Bedrock, and my team is really keen to hear. They are all here to hear from you. And I just need some quick tips. How do I get started building Gen AI applications quickly? Right. So that's my urgency. I don't want to get into nitty gritties of training models and things like that. Just tell me how can I do that really quickly, and what kind of services and features that you have for me today.
Sure, Panna. Thanks a lot, and it's great interacting with you. And I understood your problem, which is about you want to create a GenAI application, and you want to get started without much of development efforts, and at the very same time, you want to build it up, right? I'll try my level best without overwhelming you, introduce you to Bedrock, show you the key features, and help you, spin your new application. I'll try to run you through a quick demo at the end so that it helps you understand. And if you still have any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any point of time, and we will be able to take it further. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, please go on.
Okay,
Yeah, sounds great.
cool. Okay, is my screen visible by any chance to you? All good. Yep. Okay. And
Everything.
is
Yeah.
yeah, and is my PPT visible to you, Perna? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to get started. Cool then. Awesome. So, folks, greetings of the day. I'm Shashank, and I'm going to walk you through Amazon Bedrock. Likewise, I'm going to answer first the very primary question. If I want to build an application, a GenAI application, then you can build and scale GenAI application using Amazon Bedrock. What is this Bedrock all about? We are going to talk about it. We are going to understand the key features about it and a quick demonstration at the end. Now, before we get started, in the slides, I wanted to take you on a quick whiteboarding and help you understand what is this Bedrock all about. Okay, give me a second and we'll get started. Cool. So think
Yeah.
about you are a insurance company. If you are an insurance company, this is your website. Okay, this is your website, and there are hundreds and thousands of active customers. These customers are going to come to my website and they're going to ask me, hey, buddy, I have bought a new car. How to create an insurance claim? Or how do I enroll my car and get my policy done? Right? What if in case accident happens? How to initiate a claim? Once I create a claim, what is the status of the claim? Yeah. And then whenever you're raising a claim, you need to give documents, right? So what will be your documents when you have bought a new car? That is, the car belongs to you, which is ownership of your car, right? You will have to give, when you purchase a car, your policy purchase documents, as well as what you need to have. You need to have is a valid driving license, DL, right? So these are the three things which we'll ask you. And if in case of you met an accident, we'll ask you pictures of your vehicle which has met the accident. We'll ask you the scene, what happened, what went wrong, and so on, right? Okay. So all these
Right.
things, yep,
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
yeah, all these things, the agents, the human agents are responding to you. Assume
Mm-hmm.
you have 1 CR customers out there, and these 1 CR customers, right? These 1 CR customers are handled by only hundreds of agents. So, do you think we would be able to scale further? At one point of time, definitely not. So, what we are going to do?
Right.
We are going to add something which is called as virtual agents. Virtual agents, what they will do? When I ask, what is the process of creating a policy? What kind of insurance premiums you have? These all things are there in the documentation, but I cannot tell the customer, hey, go and read that, right? So, what this
Right.
virtual agents will do, they will answer the very basic queries which are related to onboarding the customer. Also, when I say I want to create a claim, right? So, at that time, what is the documents needed? It could be answered by my virtual agent. What is the
So
status of
Shashank,
my claim?
I'll
Yes.
just yeah, I'll just stop
Yeah.
you there. So I'm just thinking this has been
Yeah.
there for quite some time, right? So
Yep. Yep.
we have chatbots and all for
Yep.
several years,
Yep. Yep.
and I'm guessing you are trying to tell me that Gen
Yep.
AI and your
Yep.
services are going to help me. So
Yep.
what's the difference? How was
Yes.
it different like 5 years ago? Because the agents had help then also. So
Yep.
how is it different now?
Yep. The basic primary difference would be that's where exactly I was coming there. That majorly earlier it was like if I ask something, it used to
Hmm.
respond me back. It may give me some detailed steps that hey, you can troubleshoot, you can do this, you can go here, you can go there, and so
Right.
on. But now these agents, they can create a claim, which means there will be a claim ID. There will be a
Okay.
claim which is created in your Dynamo database or in the database, whatever you choose, right? There will be an entry done automatically. Plus, the status of the claim will be open. Also, it will send you a reminder for the documents until your window period is not closed, right? And once if in case I need anything else, it will mark those things that hey, Shashank has given the driving license. The car belongs to him. The images of the car, accident has met. The number plate of the car, it belongs to Shashank. The driving license belongs to Shashank. Policy also is in valid date, and the ticket is having sufficient documents to be given to a human agent for them to process. Till that level, all those things can be automated,
So are you
and
saying
that's
Bedrock will do all of this? So my entire business workflow can be done, can be offloaded to Bedrock, and it will do all of this?
using agents will try to maximize things and will try to do
Okay.
as many things as possible with minimum lines of code, and that's what I'm
Sounds
going to
awesome.
introduce you today. Yeah, does that help?
Great. Yes, that
Okay,
helps. And I would love
cool.
to go into more details as well. Yeah.
Surely. Thank you. Thanks, Panna. Okay, so folks, when I was saying that we are going to use something called as virtual agents, you will ask me immediately, these virtual agents, where am I going to host it? Where am I going to run it? Right? So when am I
Hmm.
going to host my model? Who is going to handle the infrastructure and so on? And
Right.
out of so many models, right? We have 40 plus models available. We have 7 plus models provided there. How do I wrap my head around it? That would be something which is coming across your mind, definitely. Right? Yep. So all I am gonna say is that your models will be hosted on our one of services, which is called as Amazon Bedrock. Okay. It is serverless infrastructure, so you do not have to worry about the infrastructure. It is a managed service. And let's see on screen what it can do it for you. And we'll come again off slides once again very shortly. Okay. Cool, Parna, so far? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you're telling
Yeah.
me is Bedrock has its own set of machine learning models or foundation models, what we call, and I can pick and choose any of those models for my tasks. I know you
Yep.
gave me an example, and are you telling
Yes.
me that I can pick and choose and I can change their features, everything
Yes.
to suit my task? Okay, that sounds
Uh,
great.
yeah. I'll try to reframe that. We'll try
Hmm,
to cover as much as we can, and we'll
sure,
try to meet your use cases. I would refrain from using the word everything can be done. So let's
right,
go slide by slide and try to cover that, and I'll try to ensure that we cover your queries by end of the session today.
sure,
Cool.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks, Parna, and keep those questions coming. I appreciate that. Okay, folks. So when we are talking about generative AI to the customers, the very first question comes to us is, so many models are available out there.
yeah.
Which one should I use? Right?
Hmm.
What is best suited as per my application? So we need to do is use case evaluation. We need to understand that depending upon my use case, I can reduce it down from 40 to 3 to 1, and that's how you can choose down to, or narrow down to a model of your choice. Okay.
So Shashank,
Second.
I have a
Yeah.
question. So you
Yeah.
said I can
Yeah.
choose, but is this a manual
Yeah.
effort where I have to choose a model, or there is something within Bedrock which will help me to evaluate or pick and choose? Because as I said, I want to be really quick, right? So I don't really have the team who's going to be doing that. So can does
Yep.
Bedrock help me with that?
Yes, we have a feature which is called as a playground, wherein you can, select the models of your choice depending upon whether you want to do a text, whether you want to do a video, or you want to, create any application. What we are doing is we are giving you the playground. You select the model of your choice. So if I'm doing a prompt and I want to compare the
Okay,
output of model one with the second one, you can do that as well. And I'll
awesome,
cover that in the upcoming slides. Yeah. So
great.
I'll take that up there. Okay, cool. So this is where we are going to help you out. Apart from that, we are going to help you quickly build and deploy your GenAI applications. And lastly, the very important question: is
Yes.
my data safe? Is my application safe? So we are going to cover that in one of the slides, and that's where I'm going to introduce you to Amazon Bedrock without further ado in the upcoming slide. So what did I say? Amazon Bedrock, it helps you to build and scale generative AI applications, right? So we are letting you select the models just within a single API. So basically, we are not taking you out from a development environment. You can integrate the model of your choice within a single API. Okay. Now, once you choose a model from those 40 to 3 to 1, the model of your choice, you say, hey, this model fits my use case. These models are trained large amount of data in past. What if I start using it today? You will be like, I want to customize it. So at that time, customization comes into picture, and we are going to talk about the prompts. We are going to talk about RAG and all those things out there, right? So
Okay.
I'll take that up word by word in the upcoming slides. Apart from that, I did show you there would be some agents, insurance website. Small things can be broken down. Complex tasks can be broken down into small tasks. Agents can execute those multiple steps for you. Fine.
Okay.
And lastly,
Sounds
we'll
good.
cover about security. We'll ensure that privacy and safety things are being done, and a little about pricing before we say goodbye. Cool?
Okay, great. So
Okay?
I just have a
Yeah.
question out
Sure.
here. So
Yeah.
you've said over here that we can
Yeah.
choose leading foundation models and
Yep.
we can query it using a single API. So does that
Yeah.
mean that it must be supporting a lot of SDKs, right? Because we have mobile applications which have
Yep.
Android and OS
Yeah.
SDKs. We have Java
Yeah.
applications. So does it
Yeah.
support all of that? So I just build my application and
Yeah.
hit a query. That's all
Yeah.
we have to do.
Yeah. So basically, if I say I'm a Python developer, so all I do is I go to the developer guide of Bedrock, and I see the language
Okay.
of, if it is in Python, I see what all
Okay.
APIs are available there, and I just invoke them, and you can invoke and you can start interacting with Bedrock. All you have to
Okay.
do is just initiate the client and start talking with it, interacting. Yeah,
Great. So basically, I'll just have a few lines of code where I'll mention which model I want to use, and there's just going to
model
be an
ID.
endpoint.
Yep,
That's great.
yep,
That's
yep.
quick and that's helpful. Thanks,
Yeah,
Shashank. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay. So while I was saying that large number of leading FM models, right? I did say that we have 40 plus models, 7 plus
Hmm.
model providers there. So those model providers are AI 21 Labs, Cohere is there, Anthropic is there, Amazon Titan family is there. Knowledge of these things is good to have. You don't have to worry about it. I'm presenting the slide in front of you, but I honestly say, if I'm going to create a chat application, then I'm going to use something which is called as Anthropic Claude, right? If my application is chatty in nature, then it is Anthropic Claude. If I'm
Okay.
generating an image, then I may use Titan, or I may use Stability Diffusion one out there, right? So you
Okay.
can select based on your use case. We do not have to remember this. These number of models that keep on coming. All we
Hmm.
have to understand is what's my use case, which model suits in 4321, use a playground, and zero down on the model of your choice.
So you're saying
Yeah.
that each of these models have a speciality, and I can just refer to your documentation and select based on my use case.
Yes.
And the playground is it like a user interface where
Yes.
I can just try out an experiment? Is that what
Yes.
you're
You
saying?
can.
Without actually
Yes.
building a full-fledged application? That's great.
Exactly. So you would be able to experiment, you will be able to deploy, iterate, pivot quickly, and then you can fix onto your model of your choice. Yeah. So
Sounds
that's
nice.
what it
Yeah.
is. Yep. Cool. Okay. So while these number of models are providers are there, likewise I said, knowledge of Amazon Titan is good to have, right? So these are our this is a family of our own Amazon title. So we call it as 1P providers, and the rest ones apart from Amazon, they are third party providers. Those 3P models, 1P or 3P models, all of these models can be accessed via a single endpoint, so you do not have to worry about it. Each model is carefully trained on doing certain particular task, right? So select according to the capabilities, their price, and performance. One advantage of using Amazon Titan is we indemnify customers against the claims that our models, and if their outputs they're infringing anyone's copyright, they will be taken care of. Okay, that's a key differentiator here. So I want you to go and check what did I speak about, right? So any output which is created by the Titan model, right, if it is infringing anyone's copyright, will be ensuring that you are covered. Okay, so
So I
just
have
go
a
and check it out.
question
Yeah,
again here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
all these models, so
yeah,
I am going to provide my
yeah,
input and my
yeah,
prompts, and it's
yeah,
going to generate something for me. So is
yeah.
that input and output actually going to be used to retrain all these models, including Titan or any of that?
A very, very good question. Once again, I'll say your data is safe with you. It's never going
Okay.
to leave the region where your API is being processed. Whenever you are going to train a model, we are going to create a private container of that model, and only you have a secure access to it. So we are not using your data, not your
Okay.
prompts. Nothing is being used to train our models or those third party model providers there. Okay. So your data is
Great.
safe, right? And I'll cover
All
that
right.
in the security once again. Cool.
Amazing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Panna. So now, just moving on, while we talked about large number of model providers out there, you can evaluate those models either automatically or either using a human evaluation report. On your screen, you see there are two kinds of evaluations can be done. If you're doing something which is called as automatic evaluation, right, you have something which is called as accuracy, toxicity, robustness. These are predefined metrics based on which you can evaluate. Now, you say, I want to have a subjective criteria. I want to have an evaluation where humans are needed. You can bring your own team, or you can ask AWS so as to leverage, skilled evaluators on your behalf. Likewise, you see on the screen, there's a Likert metrics where you can measure against any question. It should be strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. Right? You can bring in your own data sets, or you can use the curated data sets which are being provided by us. You can even have you can have a predefined metrics of yours, like brand relevancy, style, and alignment to your brand voice. Okay, so you can do all these things as a part of model evaluation in Bedrock. and that will help you zero down to this is the model of my choice, and this is working for me.
That
So
sounds
far, so
really
good.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about the model's performance? So I have my
Yep.
application. Can I see all those metrics in CloudWatch too? Is Bedrock integrated with CloudWatch? So I
Yes.
know you
Yes.
told me about the model evaluation metrics,
Yep.
but
Yep.
actually the performance metrics also I should be able to see, right, in
Yes.
CloudWatch?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good.
Yes. So we right away show it as a part of playground also, and you can measure it, and you can have your custom metrics as well. Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Now, once you selected the model of your choice, what you would
Mhm.
like to do? You would be like,
Yeah.
I want this model to make it work for me, right?
Of course, yeah, that's what. It's because it's all general data, right, Shashank?
Yep.
It may not do my work. What if I
Exactly.
have a whole lot of business documents and I want it to give answers curated
Based.
for my employees or my customers? How can I
Yep.
do that, right?
Yep.
Please
Yep.
tell me
Yep.
what are the ways I can do that.
Sure, sure. So before I begin there, I'll just introduce people, folks, everyone, small things, and then I'll take you there where you're asking how do I integrate with enterprise data sources. Okay, cool. So firstly, we are going to customize a model to make the model work for me. Yep. So first would be prompt engineering. In your previous sessions, we did talk about prompt. When I'm asking something to the model, it's a question which I'm asking, it's a prompt which I'm asking in a natural language, right? So, what would be prompt engineering? You're asking the GenAI solutions so as to generate a desired solution for you.
Hmm.
Apart from that, what you can do is you can use RAG. RAG is Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is where Perna, your answer comes in now. That you want
Hmm.
the model to answer beyond its capabilities. You want it
Right.
to, integrate enterprise data sources there. You want to bring in the company data and make the model answer it accordingly. At that time, RAG comes into picture. Cool. I'll come there into RAG in depth once again. Just let me cover the next two part of this customizing one, and I'll show it to you
Okay.
in action by doing it on whiteboarding. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Cool.
So RAG is done. Now we did in the previous sessions about fine tuning. So if I'm in an insurance domain, and if I want to automate a model to check, have I taken multiple insurance in the past? Am I a fraudulent customer who raises multiple bogus claims together? Based on that, do I want to take automatic, evaluation of the claim, yes and no, or give a metrics to it that possibly he's a scam? In such points, when I want to tune a model to do a particular task well, you are doing a fine tuning. Okay. And
Okay.
when you want your general model to pick up the lingo in the insurance domain, like your claims is there, like your insurance related some terms are there. In health, we say go and go to your TPA for getting your insurance done and so on. So when you want your model to pick up the lingo, you're going to do is continuous pre-training. That is done. Train your model with non-labeled data sets. Cool. Now you will be like, I want to create a model of my own choice. It will go on extreme right, which means your complexity, your quality, your cost and time, everything will increase. So, what is the best way forward? Pick a model which suits your use case and customize it. So, what am I going to talk about now? I'm going to talk about RAG in action. Does that
So
help so
Shashank,
far? Yeah,
I
yeah,
just want to
yeah,
clarify my
yeah,
understanding. So these are the
yeah,
four ways that you've given of
yep,
doing customization, right? So in
yep,
prompt engineering, I will be having curated prompts and provide the
yep,
context in my prompt. So the quality
yes,
of my prompt will determine the output, right?
yes,
And I
yes,
guess in your RAG,
yep,
we have an external source that I'm going to
yes,
attach to my
yeah,
application, and it's going to pick
yeah,
up from context there.
true that.
And if I'm not wrong, in fine
Yeah.
tuning, we are actually going to provide labeled
Label
information.
data sets. Yes,
And
yes,
labeling, as we had when I had consulted Ashish, he
yeah,
had mentioned that
yeah,
labeling is where you're mapping
yeah,
input to output. So we're literally
yes.
training the model
This
and saying, hey, if this comes, this is the output. If you see a dog
cats
which
and
looks
dog,
like a,
cat and dog.
okay.
Yep,
And
yep,
the last one, continued pre-training,
yeah.
I believe it is unlabeled data, and it's a whole
Unlabeled
lot of
data sets.
data.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
yes,
I'm just a
yes.
little confused. Like,
Yeah,
when do I choose between fine tuning and continued pre-training? Because both of them are is essentially training, right? So how do
yep.
I know when to use what, and is there any benefit between them or difference?
Per my experience, I would select fine tuning only when I want a model to excel in a certain particular task. Okay.
Okay.
So, for example, if it's only related to claims, right, I want to improve the accuracy of the claims which is being done and so on. So, at that time, I'll give it a label data set and I'll try to train my model and increase that accuracy. But likewise,
Okay.
I said, if I want a particular lingo, I wanted to understand the generic terms. For example, the model is trained just on, understanding the insurance. But if I want
Hmm.
FSI and insurance, or if I want health insurance terms specifically to understand, it's better to go for continuous pre-training,
Okay.
and it gives you much more better results than the
Okay.
previous options out there.
So fine tuning is for a specific small task and small amount
Small
of
task,
data, and I'm guessing for continued pre-training
yeah.
there will be a diverse data set, and of course you cannot
Unlabeled
keep
data
on
sets,
labeling it so much, right? That
unlabeled
time
data
I'll go for,
sets,
yeah,
unlabeled data sets, and making the model to adapt it.
a
Yep.
little more generic. Okay,
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for
Cool.
that.
Yeah. No worries. So now I'll quickly run you through about just give me a second. I'll quickly run you through what is this REG all about, right? So just a second. Too much of juggling there. Okay. So if I say about REG, right? So what did we say that these models are trained way back in past. Okay. So what are we going to do is I am going to connect my enterprise sources or enterprise data sources, which means what? Whatever data is coming in, right? It will be broken down. For example, if it is a PDF, I bought a new car and the car's invoice is there, and any other documents which I'm ingesting into my S3, I'll break it down into tiny, tiny parts, which is called as chunking. From there, then, I'll convert. If you would have heard in way back in past, embedding,
Mhm.
Ashish did talk about embedding, right? So we are going to do embedding, and then we are going to store it in something which is called as vector source. And that vector source, assume as of now, if we are selecting as open search serverless or something else, perfectly fine. Once you store it, right? Now what you do is, for example, Parna, you are in Paris
Mhm.
right now. Okay?
I
Paris
wish.
has 100 Paris had 100 restaurants around Eiffel Tower. Yes? Now, the
Mhm.
model was trained using this 100 restaurants. Okay, so when you're
Okay.
asking certain question, right, when you're asking certain question, model is able to understand those 100. But now what you said, I am adding the data, so I want the 101 restaurant also to be included in there, right? Yes.
Right.
Okay, makes sense. But the model
Right.
won't be able to do it because it's cut off from internet. What did I say?
So
Your
this is
data is within your
additional
VPC.
knowledge that we are
Yes, we are
augmenting. So
giving it.
that's where retrieval augmented. So that
Coming.
augmentation part is this what you're talking
Yes,
about,
yes.
right? Where we
I'm
are
I'm coming there.
adding. Okay,
Yes, I'm
got it.
coming there. We are adding something to the user's input and we are making more
Right.
context. Yep. So basically,
Bringing more
when you are
context. Yes.
asking any question, hey, show me the restaurants, show me those restaurants in Paris, right? So, whatever is your query, we are searching in our knowledge bases, plus
Mhm.
whatever this data we have it here, we are searching it there. Your user input plus that query is being augmented, then it is given to the model, and then model gives you a response. And that's how retrieval augmented generation works.
Okay, so
Does
the
that make
retrieval
sense?
part is where it's retrieving from this vector database or vector source that you're talking about, right?
And adding that
Augmenting it,
context.
yeah, and what it returns back to you, that is what you're augmenting or you're adding to already the query that is there,
This
and
was
then
a
finally,
query. I added
yes,
something to the query, and then I'm
and
passing it to the model, and
and
then it
that's
is
where it's
generating a response.
generating your thing. Makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So earlier it was only able to respond from 100. Now it is able
Mm-hmm.
to respond from 101, and it's able to understand the restaurant which you were looking out for.
Okay, so basically, I did not actually go and manipulate the learning of my model. I just augmented it, or I'm adding to its intelligence, right? It's like a
It's it's
cheat code
it's
somebody is giving you from the side. You study for an exam and you just know that much, and somebody's giving you a little more.
it's
Okay, makes
it's
sense.
it's 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 all about customization and making it work outside its capabilities. Yeah, connecting our enterprise data sources, right? Now,
Okay.
while I was saying, right, you need to do all these things. You would be
Hmm.
like, buddy, I don't have this much resources to do this for me. I don't know what kind of data is coming in. I won't be sitting and doing this chunking, breaking down into small, small things, then
Yeah.
doing the embeddings, right? And then selecting the vector source of my type. So
Right.
this is what I was saying is all about RAG, right? But now I
Hmm.
want someone just to reduce the complexity for me. I want it to be managed service for me. So for that,
Okay.
what we will come across a service of Amazon, which is called as knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock.
So this is completely managed. I don't have to manage the infrastructure of that vector database that you're talking about. It's
Exactly.
completely
So I'll come
integrated,
there. I'll
right?
come there. So what is knowledge base going to ask you? Hey Shashank, where is the data stored? So right now my data stored is in S3. So this is where my data is coming in. So whenever you are
Okay.
uploading my insurance claims, new purchase, accident you met, you're adding images, everything will be in an S3 bucket. That is my input source. Right?
Okay.
Second thing, it will ask me is what kind of, what kind of models we are going to use, right? What kind of models we are going to use for embedding, right? after that After that, it will ask me, once I created those vectors, where am I going to store? So basically, vector stores, where am I going to store it, right? So
Okay.
where you will store it, you will store it in your open search. Then you will say, hey buddy, I don't have this, or I am already doing it on Atlas, right? I have my MongoDB Atlassian, so I want it to be on MongoDB. They will go on MongoDB as well. I'm sorry for this.
So there are
Okay.
other options also, Shashank, what you're saying,
Yes.
apart from open
Yeah.
search.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. MongoDB is there. Then apart from that, we are adding more and more databases like our own DynamoDB and few other databases of Amazon. I'll run you through that on our slides. So we are
Okay.
allowing you to integrate your own ones.
So this intelligence part of where the conversion happens of the data into embeddings or vectorization, that I don't
Yeah.
have to manage it. I just have to say that this is the embeddings model I want to use, and
Yep.
it'll all happen internally. It will do the conversion.
Yep.
And are you saying I can go and upload all sorts of data like PDFs, CSVs, text, and any sort of these can be handled? Is
There are
that
few
fine for
supported
knowledge
data.
base?
Yeah, there are few supported databases. So I would
Okay.
say PDF, safe to say yes. Few other
Yes.
ones, I'll have to check and get back to you on that. Right. So I'll
Great.
park that as of now. But yeah, there are
Okay.
few document types which are being allowed, right, in the
Okay.
knowledge base. But now if you say, Shashank, I want to upload an image there, you will have to create a
Hmm.
multimodal one. It won't work here.
Got
Okay.
it. Makes
So it
sense.
works only with few extensions out there. So
Hmm.
once you get into S3, right, it will ask you chunking. Chunking is breaking down a document into tiny tiny pieces. So
Hmm.
basically, in chunking earlier there was something which was called as fixed size chunking. You break it down into tokens of around 300 tokens, right? Okay. Then there was something which is options which are given is called as hierarchical one, right? Hierarchical one is like your parent and child. Okay. So for example, Indian IPC, you ask someone, hey, what is this section? They will say IPC dhara number this, section number this, subsection number this, right? In Bible also, in the religious books, we have is like chapter, then we have is sections, subsections, and so on, right? So
Okay.
if I ask, hey, can you tell me, according to Indian Penal Code or according to this particular law, can you tell me, what will happen if I do something wrong? I don't want
Hmm.
you to say section, subsection, and overwhelm me. I just want you to give me a gist of it, right? So at that time, hierarchical one comes into picture. So
Okay.
it will break down. So it's good to have at that particular point of time. Then there is something which is called a semantic one. So breaking down of long inputs into based on meaning of the words, you will go for semantic one. Now, one of my customer is doing is something like they want to break down lines of code into functions, right? So based on functions, they want to break it. So they are doing something which is called as custom chunking. And now you will say, hey bro, my data is already chunked. I don't want you to do chunking. So at that time, you can select one document and you can say this is already chunked, right? So these
Okay.
all options, they are available, made available to your knowledge base. And you don't have to get overwhelmed. It's a console. It will ask you these things. You just fill it within 4 clicks. You're sorted,
Great.
right? Yeah.
Okay. So
So
this
that is
chunking is very similar to like how you tokenize. Chunking is like breaking down the document into smaller parts, right?
Yep,
if I
breaking
understand.
down into small parts, and then we are doing them embedding, and based on the
Hmm.
distance, it's just like I bought a new iPhone 15 or iPhone 16, right? So if I look for iPhone HD wallpapers, 16 wallpapers, right? So it shows me the same wallpapers which are matching to iPhone HD. How does it understand? It understands because the document is broken down into tiny parts. Embedding is done. We understand that for iPhone 15, Shashank is looking for this wallpaper only, and that's how the relevant searches come, right?
Okay.
So that's the
Okay.
reason chunking is done, so that we store it in embedding and vectors. Cool. So
Okay.
far so good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So all I said was a RAG was needed for customizing it to connect to enterprise data sources, and from there, then we are going to introduce you to knowledge base, right? Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Now
Cool.
I'll proceed towards the slides once back again. Fine. So moving on further, what did I say? Managed RAG is knowledge bases out there. You can securely connect your enterprise data sources there. Okay. It's a fully managed workflow. I don't have sufficient amount of people and so on. It has inbuilt session context management for multi-intern conversations. Like for example, I'm using it for booking holiday tickets. I'm going,
Hmm.
for example, today's date is 19th, and I have an upcoming ticket or I'm upcoming trip to Mumbai on 21st, right? And 21st to 23rd was my ticket, but I want to stretch it by 1 day. So if I'm connected to the agent, I don't have to say, hey, I'm Shashank, hey, I'm this, hey, I'm that. If I say, can you stretch my ticket to one more day, right? It will do it
Right.
automatically because it knows that conversation which is done in the past. It has that context, and it helps you for
Okay.
such multi-turn conversations. Okay,
So you mean the
fine.
previous context is also retained, and is this something
You can.
similar to chain of thoughts? It retains whatever it has done, and it knows
Uh,
what else to do with the previous
I,
information that
I,
was given. So I don't have to
I,
repeat it. No, what I mean
I,
to say is,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah. So basically, it
okay,
remembers my memory. In memory, it remembers, what I have asked, what I have communicated in the past,
right,
and based on that, it can take, actions. So that's one of the great ways to, leverage it there. Yeah.
okay, okay,
Okay. And the last one, basically, if I say, how do I raise an insurance? It responds back along with the link. Here is where I got this data. So basically, it is adding source of truth. So it says, I'm not hallucinating. I brought it from your enterprise data source only, and this is a
okay,
link, right? So
okay,
that's how it improves, the trustworthiness, or I would say, reducing the hallucinations and showing you the transparency. Cool.
right,
So just running you through in RAG, we saw that complex diagrams which I created. Now,
hmm,
whenever user is asking something, it is going to hit a Bedrock. Bedrock will bring it into knowledge bases for Bedrock. We'll check for the data there. We'll add that to your user query, that is augmented prompt. And from there, it will go to the models. As of now, these are the models available in the embedding. And then it will generate the response for you. That is the answer,
got
right?
it,
So I
got it,
said it will ask you only a few questions, which is there on the screen, right?
hmm,
It is asking you very few questions, which would base where is the S3 bucket. Second, it is going to ask you about chunking, which I explained, hierarchical, semantic, and fixed chunking options, right? Okay. Then I said you can customize chunking. That is one of my customers I told you about breaking down by functions, right? It can parse PDF, which I told you safely it can be done, right? Okay.
right,
And it can break down a complex query into small subqueries, and it can generate relevant information out for you, okay, for a final
great,
answer, right?
great,
And for
great,
the people out there, I'll say go and look for what is responsible AI policies. It is good to know. That will help you out to understand further. Okay.
okay,
Now, while I said input was only primarily S3, we have these four which are available there. Uh, as of now, till last date, when I saw it in the console, they still show preview. I did try about the web crawler. Web crawler is you can send a crawler to your static website. You can index the data as your input. So we know that you have data sources apart from S3. So you can go and send it as a web crawler, right? And you can
okay,
get the data. If you have Atlassian Confluence you're using for your ticketing purpose and all, you can go and check it out
right,
there and bring the data there. If your data is stored on SharePoint, you can get it from there as well. And Salesforce for if I said about insurance or car, right? So if I bought a car,
okay,
if I had an intent to buy a car, all my life cycle, it can be found there. You can stitch all the data, bring it in, and you can ingest that in your knowledge base.
That's awesome. So that means even third party
Yep,
SaaS providers can be integrated. That's great.
yep, 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 yep. Okay. So moving on to the next one then. Likewise, I said open search was one of the services which I was talking about. Then I did say open search serverless as well. Then I
Hmm.
did talk about you can connect it to enterprise Redis. You can connect it not only to enterprise Redis, but Atlassian MongoDB. Apart from that, all other NoSQL databases which are there on the screen, they are being added slowly and gradually. So these
Okay,
are the
so
vector
relational databases also are there. So I can
also
see
there.
Aurora. Yeah,
Yes,
RDS.
yes,
Okay, that's
yes,
awesome. Okay.
yes, yes. So that's where I was coming in from. Not only
Hmm.
external, our relational and non-relational databases are there, and we are adding these capabilities for you to store the vectors, and this
Okay.
keeps on upgrading. Yeah. So keep an eye on it. Yep.
Sure, sure.
Cool. Okay.
Okay,
Moving
that
on.
really makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Moving on to
I'm
yeah,
just a little concerned
yeah,
about one thing, Shashank.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, we are providing all this
yeah.
data. So how do I ensure that my data is always private, right? So uh, even connect talking to these data sources, I
Yeah.
don't want it to go over internet. So can I
Yeah.
use private link to do that and have my Gen AI applications go privately over private link? Because I
Okay.
don't really want to use the internet. Can I do that?
Quite not sure about that. I like to park it up as of now. I'll have to check
Okay.
that and get back to you on it. Right.
Sure, sure.
And let me come to the security part. We'll talk about the security, things out there.
Okay.
Right. So
Great.
I'm parking this one particular question of yours,
Sure,
and
sure.
one was extensions which are supported by knowledge base. Cool. Okay. Now moving further, like as I said, we can break down a complex task into small things. That is what agents can do it for you. They understand what you're looking out for. They understand the user input. They understand the user intent. Based on that, decompose it into small tasks. Now, if I want to create a claim, right? So if I want to create a claim, I want to create a claim ID. I want to put it into the database. So there is someone who's calling API gateway. It is going to Lambda. It is going to DynamoDB there in the database and getting the result back to me, right? All these
Okay.
things can be done using agents with minimal
Awesome.
lines of code, and that's where agents come into picture.
So Shashank, you're saying I
Yeah.
can even have business logic. So I can have some steps which have business logic, like calling a lambda behind a
Yep.
API, or
Yep.
probably go to some third-party API, get some information, then push it to a FM model and do
Yep.
something. So I can have that whole orchestration done using the agent, right?
Agents. Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that
Yep.
sounds great. Okay,
Yep. So, which is what I'm just trying to show it here, that you can select the model of your choice. You can
okay,
give the basic instructions, your business logic, and all those things. Where do I get the data from? What all those data sources are, and how do I trigger them, or how do I connect them? All those things can be done. And likewise, you were asking behind chain of thought, it comes
hmm,
here. You can do those chain
okay,
of thoughts and based on my user intent. So basically, when I'm talking to the virtual agent in my insurance,
hmm,
I want to create a new claim. It will go to Lambda, create a new claim. If I say
right,
that what is the status of that claim, it will go to get claim update, right? If I
okay.
upload images, then it will trigger what? It will trigger ingestion of the documents into S3. It will trigger the knowledge base part where the data is getting updated and all, right? So depending
Right.
upon what you're selecting, that particular agent will be called and that particular activities will be done in the
So the
background.
agent can do different types of tasks. What you're saying is it doesn't have to just do one task. It
No.
is intelligent enough. Like say if
Yep.
it's like a travel booking site.
Yep.
Sometimes I would want to make a booking. Sometimes I just
Yep.
want to see my booking status. So it
Yes.
will be intelligent enough to know what to do, right?
Yes.
Based on what you're
Yes.
saying as the
Yes.
intent of the user. That's
Yes,
awesome.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So what I'm going to do is, Panna, I'm just going to quickly show you one of the
Yeah, that will
demos,
be great to
right?
see a demo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to show you a small demo about agents in action, and along with that, I'll give a supplementary link for people to go through and read through, which is going
Hmm.
to help them understand. If I create an chatty application which is for insurance domain, and the way we were talking about, it will help them correlate that. Okay. So in the
Okay.
interest of time, I'm giving one demo, and I'll give one reference link for you to
Yeah.
study and dive deep further.
Just one
Yeah,
question, Shashank,
tell me.
while you are spinning up your demo.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
about malicious prompts, right? I don't want malicious prompts to reach my model, and I don't want malicious or harmful content to be given out
yep.
also.
Yep.
How do I control that? Are there any such controls and features in Bedrocks which
Yep.
can do this
Come,
filtering?
come, yep. Coming to security one after the demo
Okay,
and quickly run you
sure.
through there. Right.
Okay.
Amazing. One of the great questions once again, and I really appreciate that, Panna. Okay. So what I'll do is, folks, I'm just trying to show you what all we heard so far. Let's see it in action. Right. We know one of our fellow associates who is there waiting for me to finish and come on this channel to speak. Right. He's about to join AWS. Right. So assume it's my first day today. It's always day one, we say, right? I'm going to the office. I'm going to an Amazon office for the first day. I want to know what can I wear or what should I wear. I need some recommendations. So think about it as I want some, um, recommendations from Amazon.in. I buy my clothes from Amazon.in based on my previous history, based on what people buy, based on what I have in wardrobe, based on the weather conditions, what should I carry. I want the stylist to, recommend me. So let's see it in action once, right? So we are going to try this demo. Let's start exploring, right? So likewise I said, I'm going to run you through customer prompts. You're going to run some prompts out there. You're going to send some inputs to your model and it's going to generate appropriate response for you. We did talk about knowledge bases. That is, it's a managed drag I talked about, right? Agents going to break down complex tasks into small ones, and they will do that business request for you. They will connect to APIs. They will do some actions for you, and so on. We are going to see this in action. Don't worry about it. Cool. So
Great.
this is my stylist. I'm gonna tell, hey, this is my first day, or I'm a consultant. I'm heading out to work. What should I wear? Basically in New York, right? So generate a look for me. So it's going to generate a lookbook for me. What it does is it is consuming the product catalog. Product catalog is all the inventory what we have, right? It is a private data, and based on trending, what people are buying, which is a public data, it generated a lookbook for me or a look for me, and I'm just going and seeing that. Have a look. This is just a story. Don't worry much about it. I'm seeing it is generating images for me. It generated the image from the product catalog, text generations from the fashion trend, right? Then it says, what do people like about business formal jacket? This is a suggested prompt which I'm running, right? So it is based on the reviews. It says, based on the color, quality of the fabric, based on 325 reviews, right? It says people like these things about the jacket, and they mention it's a lightweight and keeps them warm, right? It is New York. It helps me keep warm, right? Now I'm asking, based on the reviews, can you tell me the quality of jacket, right? I want further dive deep. It will tell me based on one of the user reviews, right? So it says someone has said about this jacket, it makes him feel comfortable, and people did ask him. A recall was there. Where did you get this jacket from? Right now, I'm interested in this jacket, and before I buy, I want to know should I wear small, medium, large, depending upon my size availability or my previous purchase patterns. So once I select that, right, based on my previous order history, it can even say this blazer M size will suit you the most. Now I'm saying, hey, can you add it to the cart, right? You see these things happening in the background, right? So based on my order history, it told me size M, and now I said add it to my cart, right? And add the rest of items to my cart. Let it do it. Okay, previous purchases, it did it for me. Okay,
So,
all
Shashank,
this,
adding to
yeah,
the cart meaning there's that agent is getting invoked behind, right? Which is going to actually go and do all of that. And all these images is coming from those knowledge bases, is
it's
what I
coming from the
understand,
product
right?
catalog, which was the
Yeah,
internal
makes
one,
sense now.
and
Yeah.
this is your again in private one, which was your order history. So I tailored
Okay.
based on your buying patterns, your choices, and you know. Now while I'm finalizing it, have a look, right? Uh, See, it's that's a more fun. Now what it will do is see this based on the weather API, it is telling me tomorrow the
Oh,
climate
okay.
would be raining and it may be chill. You want to add a jacket or you want to add an umbrella. I'm like, add an umbrella, but this got from weather API, and then I just that's all. It's my cart which is looking like, and you can customize it further. There is without taking names, I would say there is a brand in India which is using generative AI so as to create a lookbook for their customers, male and female. So assume Shashank in mid 30s, he wants to go to corporate. He loves to wear subtle tones. Generate a lookbook for him. It will even show these are the clothes that are in your wardrobe. These are the clothes you may like to style it up. right?
Okay.
These are the things which you may like to buy, right?
Personalization. Yeah.
Personalization. Now, if I'm creating, a garment for men, I want to take feedback from my purchasing customers. I can show them a
Hmm.
mock-up, and I can pre-order, take pre-orders from them, and that's how you can avoid garment wastage as well. So,
Okay. Makes
Gen
sense.
AI, it can be used for too many things like this. This is just one of the illustrations where your knowledge base and everything was in action.
Yeah,
The
I think this is an amazing demo, Shashank, because
Thank you.
this shows all of them in use, right? It used
Yep,
knowledge
yep,
bases, there's the
yep,
agent, and it
yep.
combined a chat bot also. So, I
Yes,
mean, we don't need anybody to do any of this.
yeah,
It's just
yes.
this
And
Bedrock is
yeah,
doing that. Yeah.
yeah. And this is one of the lengthy ones, but this is one of the great ones. If you're planning for Gen AI examination, I recommend people to, watch this video at least, give this a read. It will help you understand what I was talking about. Hey, Shashank, can you create a new claim? What is the update about this claim? Can you gather the evidence for this one? If, your vehicle is damaged by any chance, and the insurance agent comes and clicks picture, they will add an estimate. You want to know what that estimate is about. You could automate all these things, right? And you can see it in action. I have it configured on my, own Isengard, own AWS account, but you can do it on your account also. Or if you don't want to do all of these things, just see this blog or watch this video. It will help you understand about knowledge base agents in action in insurance domain.
Great. We'll share this link with the team
Surely,
as well. Yeah.
surely, surely. Cool. Okay, I'll come back to my slides, right? So this is what was all about the Bedrock agents, right?
Hmm.
Now, I did hear many times security, 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 right?
Yeah.
So yes, malicious prompts is coming in from bad. Someone is trying to jailbreak, someone is trying to slide in bad prompts or doing a prompt injection attack. You can stop it using Bedrock guardrails. Okay,
Okay.
so basically, it is going to help you out to reduce hallucinations, 75% by up to 75%, right? So, what would be an example, right? When I'll use Bedrock guardrails, assume I'm creating a small application which is generating stories for children. I don't want anyone to add a bad prompt to the model and let the
Right.
model generate adult content or use non-parliamentary words, right? So I want the model to revolve around certain topics. I want to say
Right.
these are the denied topics. These are the stop words. You should not generate these
Yeah.
things, right? Or think about in terms of finance domain. I created a financial advisor, but someone says I have 10 lakhs or 1 million in hand, and I want that 1 million to double up by 3 million at the end of the day. Can you recommend top 10 stocks for me? What
Right.
if the model responded and you invested instead of 1 million, it turned it into zero? Well, come and sue me. So I
Right.
don't want my model to, respond to certain prompts, and I want to stop those harmful content to a great extent. You'll use Amazon Bedrock guardrails out there, right? And
Right.
if there is any PI data you want to block, that is coming in upcoming futures. But I would say you can reduce great amount of hallucinations by doing a ground check there and improve the responses of the model. Does that help,
Right.
Perna, somewhere down the line?
Of course, definitely. So you're saying even
Yeah.
guardrail, even the output that the model is giving, it can filter the PI because it has been trained with a lot of data, right? So there could be some PI in there also. So it will filter even the output, right? Not only the input, both,
Yep.
right?
And
Okay.
till last I knew it was in the user inputs only and the FM
Okay.
responses as well, which you asked,
Okay.
right? But
Okay.
I knew it was in preview. So far,
Okay.
so good. I'll say it's in the pipeline as of now, as per my knowledge. Yeah.
Great.
But
Great.
in
Okay.
input output, both can be controlled. Yeah.
Okay, this is awesome. Now
Okay.
comes to my final question,
Yeah.
Shashank. And
Yeah.
now I know a lot
Yeah.
about Bedrock, but how much
Yeah.
do I need to pay? So I also want
Yeah.
to know about
Okay.
how do you charge or what are the
Surely.
charges, things like that,
Surely.
right? What's the payment
Surely.
model? Yeah.
Surely. So before I come there, which is
Hmm.
exactly on the next slide, let me cover a little about security since we're talking about it, right?
Hmm.
So, likewise, I said, Amazon Bedrock is going to help you keep your data, application, and data both secure and private. Cool. So,
Okay.
likewise, I said earlier, we do not use your data to fine tune your model. So, whenever your model is being fine tuned, your data is with you, Whenever you're fine tuning it, it's put in a secure container only accessible by you. All the data is encrypted in transit as well as at the rest, right? Okay.
Okay.
And the data remains in the region where your API has been processed. And Bedrock
Okay.
is in conformant with all this, FedRAM, GDPR, as well as all of the regulatory standards out there. Cool. So you're safe, is what I want to say. Your data is safe, and feel free to leverage this particular service. Cool,
Yeah.
irrespective of 1P, 3P models. And coming to the pricing, right, Prana? So
Hmm.
basically, pricing depends upon your number of input and output tokens. You need to measure the
Okay.
tokens out there. So
Hmm.
I would definitely say for the people who are practicing for upcoming exams, what is token, what is hallucination, these things are really good terms to know. And now, if I
Hmm.
talk about inference, Prana, to respond to your question, you can go for on demand for the workloads which are unpredictable in nature. That is on the left hand side. If it is unpredictable one, variable workloads, better to go for on demand. And if you know I'm going to have is like consistent high volume workload, at that time you go for provision throughput. Right
Okay.
now,
And for my customized models, Shashank, can I
very right
use on
question.
demand?
Very right question. For a customized one, again, you will have to go for provision throughput because
Okay.
you want a
Okay.
custom model, you want a guaranteed performance, you want a fixed cost, and you want exclusive access. So you will go for provision throughput there at that particular point of time.
Okay.
Okay, Parna?
Okay. So I
And the
understand
yeah,
tokens, right? You said the cost is based on the tokens
we need to measure on tokens, input
and
tokens,
the
output
requests,
tokens.
if I'm not wrong, because we are
Number
making
of
the API.
request, number of request, or number of tokens that will matter if you're going in on demand.
Okay.
That is a
Okay.
request per minute or number of tokens per minute.
Okay. And in
And if you know
provisioned,
that,
I get some discount. Is that based
yes,
something like what we
yes,
have reserved instances, something like that,
yes,
based
yes,
on the duration?
yes.
Okay.
So the choice of words was you get a guaranteed performance, how much you wanted. You are
Okay.
committing to the fixed capacity, but you're getting it at potentially lower cost. So that is when
Okay.
provision throughput will come into picture, right? And the very
Great.
last one before I end, if you are getting large number of requests, you want to aggregate those responses and analyze in batch. At that time, you're going to use batch inference, which comes into picture. Cool. Okay. So
Okay.
this was all about pricing, Parna. Does that help?
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The last slide of all, I promise. So, likewise, Parna, you were asking me that
Hmm.
Shashank, I don't know much of AWS console. I don't know much of
Right.
AWS machine learning expertise. Then this is where you need to go. Bedrock Studio is a web-based interface. It is specifically meant for rapid prototyping for
Okay.
developers, so as to build, evaluate, and share generative AI applications. Okay, so
Great.
everything which I talked about, foundation model, knowledge base, agent, guardrails, collaborations, experimenting without having those in-depth knowledge, it's going to help you out there. Cool.
That really helps. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
really get started quickly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. So thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for joining us today. Yep. And I
Yeah,
hope this
thank you so
helps you.
much, Shashank. That was really
Sure.
helpful, and I think it was helpful for the team also to understand the capabilities of Bedrock. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
I'm
You're
on
on
mute, I
mute.
guess. So interesting demo, Shashank, and now I know where I have to go for my next wardrobe. So good one. Thanks everyone. And there were questions which we were able to answer. Some of them, if something is remains unanswered, put them into the Discord channel and we'll respond back there. But yeah, it was interesting. And what we did today was just talk about basics of what Bedrock can do. There are a lot of capabilities inside it, and it is evolving. It is a product which having lots and lots of new changes coming up. There are workflows, there are automation coming up. So the idea is that AWS wants to ensure that machine learning becomes like a standard thing which anyone can use. It should not be just limited to highly technical or highly statistical people. That's what AWS is trying, and Bedrock is one of the service which makes the interfacing much easier. Similarly, there is Party Rock which you could use. But yeah, we will discuss more things as we move forward. So thanks, Shashank. Thanks, Parna. Too many questions and too many great answers there, so it was really nice, and hopefully everyone has learned something new out of it. I'll give you an analogy that how I see RAG as, consider you are Harry Potter. You went to Hogwarts and you learned a lot of magic. Done? Good. Now, you have learned how to control a troll of X amount of size, and now you encounter a troll who is very big, which you have never encountered before. Now you cannot go to university again and say, hey, teach me how to do this. What you will do, you will read some books, get some information, and then enhance your magic on the fly and use it on the troll. So you are basically enhancing based on the external knowledge, like books. So knowledge bases are books. You read those books, and then based on that, you go ahead and implement the solution for you. So that's how you are augmenting your capability. That's why we say it: retrieve, then augment it, and then generate the content. So that's what you are trying to do with the RAG. So all the best. Thank you. And now
Thank
we have
you.
Prasad and Ifeanyi with us. So Prasad, I'll add you again, and we'll see you, Shashank, Parna, in a minute.
Thank you.
And I'll hand it over to you. Welcome, Ifeanyi, and good to be seeing you here again. And hopefully we would be seeing you internally also now. So it's really,
Yes.
really good. So I'll let Prasad have a discussion. Prasad, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Shashank, and thanks, Parna. This was really good discussion. Learned a lot. And yeah, welcome, Ifeanyi. First of all, congratulations, man. You actually made the dream come true.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. I saw your post today and I was like, yes, I remember the book. Going back and reading that sentence when I actually got the offer, I was like, man, it actually came through.
Yeah, I remember when we interviewed for the book, and your story at that time was so inspiring, like how you whole transitioned your career to cloud, and now it is like another level. For our
Mhm.
audience who would not be knowing, let's start, Ifeanyi, by introducing yourself, a bit of your background and your journey, and then we'll get into specific questions.
Yes, so I'm actually from a small country in Turks and Caicos, in the Caribbean. Maybe if you guys maybe have not heard it, but a small country of only about 60,000 people. My background was a professional athlete in track and field. So very young, I had natural talent. Ended up going to Jamaica and got recruited from a college to go to a university in the United States. And from there, my athletic abilities skyrocketed. And then I ended up going pro for Nike, signed a contract with Nike, and was pro for about 7 years, traveled around the whole world, almost every single continent except Antarctica. And just had fun doing that. And then I decided, what's next for my life? And it landed on, tech. And it was on that journey of trying to find out where I'm going to fit into this world called tech is where I found the cloud, right? And AWS was the first initial in primary impact of what the cloud was. And from there, when I learned about AWS, I just dove deep straight in and just kept going deeper and deeper. And my passion just grew for this thing called the cloud. And within about 2 years of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I landed my first cloud role. And and then from there, for the past like 1.5 years, which I thought was going to take a lot longer, just like last week, I announced that joining AWS. So about 1.5 years in my cloud career, I've reached this goal that I've been trying to do from the time I even started to learn about the cloud.
And that's amazing journey. Sometimes might even look like unreal. And there are a
Mhm.
lot of people who ask this question: is it possible to transition to cloud from a non-technical role? Or if I have a career gap, is it possible to get a role in cloud? And then not only that, just getting a role at the FANG. So you
Mhm.
have done that, right? So I'll start with, for anyone who would like to read the whole journey, we have it in the book, Cloud Career Journeys book. Along with Ifeanyi, we have 15 other people whose journeys are covered, like people from diverse backgrounds and how they have been able to transition to cloud. But in this session, as we have only half an hour, I'll focus mainly on Ifeanyi's journeys to AWS, specifically asking questions about how he was able to get into AWS. So when you thought, I know that you have been learning a lot and you share a lot on LinkedIn. You learn publicly. Like let's start with your 4 a.m. club. How do you think about doing that?
Yeah, so 4 a.m. I mean, one of the main things that everybody else usually has issue with when they're trying to transition to cloud, when they're trying to move from one career to the other, is they're still in their regular career. So you still have work from 9 to 5, right? And then you have to find time outside of that to study. And when you're really passionate about that thing you're studying, your work kind of almost becomes a distraction because you're trying to get into cloud, but your regular day job is preventing you from having time. So I started realizing that, okay, the only time I have to really put in work was over the weekend. But the problem with the weekend is that's when everybody's off. That's the time you spend time with family. That's the time you spend time with friends. So if you study the whole weekend, you have no time to really relax, right? So you get overwhelmed, you get burnt out quickly. So I decided, okay, what can I do to still have time on a Saturday or on a weekend, but still be able to study and focus? So I decided to wake up by 4 a.m. on a Saturday, study from 4 a.m. to like 8 a.m. So that's 4 hours of deep focus. Nobody's awake. Nobody's distracting you. You have 4 hours of just going straight in and studying. And then you go to sleep from like 8 to 12. By the time you wake up at 12, you still have the whole day to have fun with family and friends. And you actually don't get tired. Like those 4 hours of a nap from 8 to 12, when you finish, you feel refreshed, right? You're ready to take on the day, especially if you go to sleep a little bit early the night before. Those 4 hours is enough to take you for the rest of the day. So you still get to have that deep study time of 4 hours, and you still get to chill out and have relaxed time with family and friends over the weekend.
Yes, and yeah, it's not only about having a goal or a dream, but putting in the hard work and finding time to put in the hard work, and which you have done. But doing that publicly, talk about
Mhm.
that. Like, what motivated you to do it publicly, and having others people along, and how that helped you?
Yeah, so the 4 a.m. or I was doing it by myself at first, but then I realized that people love to work as a team, as collectively, or feel like there's somebody else with them on this journey. So when I started live streaming on Saturdays at 4 a.m., I realized that other people want to have like accountability friend or buddy. So when they come on live, I'm not actually teaching them anything. We are just coming together and we are just studying on our own separate things, but they can see me and they can interact with me. But once we get into the focus zone, everybody is studying by themselves. But the fact that you're on live with a bunch of people, it makes you feel like you're not alone. This is a journey that you're with a bunch of people who's learning and upskilling at the same time as you. So it makes it feel like you're together with a group.
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So now let's talk about specifically on AWS. Which role did you think that you would be applying for AWS?
So my goal has always been solutions architect role. That was the pinnacle of somewhere in my career. That's what I'm going to get into, and then that line aligned with AWS. So working for AWS as a solutions architect. So there's many ways to get there, right? You can enter inside of a different role, transition in. You can enter at a lower level, work your way up, and transition in. But there was always two roles that I felt fit me, other than the solutions architect role. If I don't get that role, was the cloud support engineer role or the TAM role, right? So the cloud support engineer role, you can get that role, learn about AWS, learn how to be an Amazonian, learn the culture, learn how to deal with customers, and from there you can work your way up to become a solution architect. And I'm the person who I don't mind starting from wherever it needs to take for me to get to my goal, right? It's just and then the town role was the other one, which is almost adjacent to solutions architect, because you work in collaboration with SAs, right? But it's very much customer facing. And I always loved that role because one, I felt like you still had the technical part, but you still dealt customer facing, which for me, I really love dealing with, personal relationships, communication, and speaking to people. So I felt like that role spoke to me more, and it was one of the roles I thought was an option to come into. And right now, I'm like, yeah, maybe I want to be an SA and transition maybe later internally, but I might end up loving the TAM role and I might stay there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how did you apply to AWS? How did you get your resume shortlisted?
Yeah, so I actually applied to AWS many times. Like I've got referred many times before, like more than 10, more than 15. I've applied many times and it just never worked out. And what's crazy is, so we talk about networking, right? There's many different ways to network. But I remember there was this recruiter from AWS who I connected with last year, like a year and a half ago. And it was I asked her about some role, and it never worked out. But I kept, speaking with her maybe every like 3 months. I would hit her up because she would post roles every single day, and some of the roles weren't perfect for me. But what I decided to do was whenever she posts a role, I would like it, comment to make sure it reached a broader people because she wants to get roles. So what that started to do was I was helping her to get candidates. So she started, developing a great relationship with me because everything she posted, I would help her reach more candidates. So then she posted a tab role, and I messaged her and was like, "Hey, this tab role looks pretty cool. I might be a good fit for it." And then, she looked at it and realized that it was a cleared one of those roles that you need like clearance. So I'm not a US citizen, so I couldn't get the role. But then she was like, "Oh, I think I have one that's based in Dallas. Do you want to check that out?" And from there, we just went into the interview phase. So it's crazy because I've applied so many different times, but how organic and natural that way happened was something I wouldn't have thought would have been the way I would have get into the interview process. But at this time, I didn't even apply. It was through a connection from a recruiter that I had a year and a half ago.
That shows the power of networking, and LinkedIn is such a great way to do that. And while we're on the topic of interviewing for TAM, there is one of the questions that I would like to take, which is, what does technical account managers do? I know you're getting new into the role, but what is your understanding of what the TAMs are, or what as a TAM you would be doing?
Yeah, so I thought of something funny the other day. So I see the town, the me, right? Me as a town. I am the plug. No, so I am the socket. Our customers are the plug. The plug plugs into the socket, which is me, and I give them access to the power of AWS internal network, right? So the internal network could be specialized essays, it could be support, it could be there's different teams who know different teams and employees who know who specialize in whatever issue or problem that the customer may have. So my purpose and objective is to make sure that the customer is using AWS to the best of their ability and they're achieving their goals using AWS. Whatever issues they have, whatever problems they have, they come to me. I'm the first line of contact. Hey, something is going on. We need to fix this. There's an issue. I need support. I rally the entire team. I can actually, help, solve the problem also. But if I need extra help, I can rally the entire team to come together to solve the problem, right? And I also help them on their journey to whatever they're trying to achieve on AWS, making sure they're using it to the best value that they can get from AWS.
Yeah, you are the front face for the customer. Like, you are the point of contact for customer to reach out, and that's true. And we do have in one of the previous series, we have invited each of these separate roles candidates at AWS. So feel free to reach out. We'll be able to share the link in the Discord channel. I think it was batch 4, in which we had this different roles, people working at AWS come and talk about what exactly that role does. And it is very helpful, even if you're, like, as Ifeanyi mentioned, like, he was thinking of solution architect role, but then he found these adjacent roles which clearly fit in really well. So all of these have some bit of overlapping responsibility and skill set that is required. There are many other questions that are coming, but I'll come to it later. But first, I would like to understand, okay, your resume got shortlisted. So how was your preparation look like? How did you clear the first phone screen?
So the first phone screen is, are you talking about the recruiter or with the or inside the interview
So
process?
let's talk about
Screen?
that. Our audience might not be knowing. Okay, the first
Okay.
is probably with the recruiter, right? So talk about recruiter, and then we'll go to the first technical phone screen.
Yes. So the first phone screen with the recruiter, right? This is a very casual conversation, right? But a couple of things to keep in mind. Yes, it's casual, but this is where the interview starts, right? From the time you start speaking with the recruiter, the interview has begun. And this is your time to learn more about the role. So the recruiter would give you a pitch of what the role is, what according to AWS, what you will be doing, and then this is also for you to also see if you align well with the role. The recruiter also wants to see if you align well with the role too. So it's a partnership that you're trying to figure out. On your part, though, you have to know your resume and what you've done, but like the back of your hand, right? So because you need to know how you fit in this role. You don't just want to work for AWS. You want to make sure it's aligned. So they might ask you questions like, in this role deals with customers. Have you had any experience with customers before? And it's not like a drilling you with questions. Just, hey, just tell me, have you had an experience with customers? So you can just say, yeah, I've done this, blah, 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 with these technologies. It's casual. It's also a time for you to ask real questions. Whatever you want to learn about AWS, about the role, just ask the questions that you really want to know because you're getting information to see if you align with this role.
Yeah, yeah, and that's true. It seems like a very casual conversation, but you need to ensure that you know your resume as well as the job description, and there is an
Mm.
alignment between both. And that's what the recruiter is trying to, have this in this short call, understand that whether you are aligned with the role and whether you, because see, once you go through this particular process, there'll be a lot of people investing a lot of time, the
Mhm.
interviewers, the candidate. So recruiters have this good job of, or need to do a good job of ensuring that the right people are put in the process. And once that is done, what was the next step?
So the next step, I actually did an online assessment. So an online
Okay.
assessment is multiple choice and is basically testing technical and behavioral competencies. And it usually lasts about an hour, hour and a half. You're not actually meeting a interviewer. It's just like a test or a test that you take as multiple choice. You click. With the behavioral side, it's more of trying to ask you situational questions, right? So an example would be they give you a situation where a customer is asking you for something, another customer is asking for something. How do you figure out which one to respond to first based off of the leadership principles of Amazon, right? So you're answering all those questions through the lens of the leadership principles. And then for the technical side, before you actually do the technical, they ask you which domains are your would you have more expertise in, right? So those domains could be like compute, networking, DevOps, security, database, and then you have to choose between those. And whichever one you choose, like the top two or three, that's the more questions that you would get. And the questions that you get is not very complex questions, right? They're not asking you to, okay, how do you orchestrate the CI/CD pipeline or something like that? No, they're asking like, okay, question would be which protocol uses TCP and UDP. And if you don't, it's very fundamental, but if you don't remember that stuff and touch on it every day, you would forget. So something like DNS uses your UDP and TCP, but if you don't remember that, you will forget. So they ask you questions on like RTO or RPO. What's the difference between those? Blue-green deployment. Maybe that asks you like, what's the command to start a Docker container or something like that. And if you're not using it every day, you forget these little things that seem easy, but you forget it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point. So in the interviews for roles like TAM or support engineer or for solution architect, you will not be asked to write a lengthy program, or this the interviews that happens for SDE, right, where you are need to solve these algorithms or system design. But these are mainly on the fundamentals. So just ensure that you brush up your fundamentals. And as Ifeanyi said, you can choose a couple of them or three or four of them. But when you choose them, ensure that you brush up all your fundamentals. And that is going to be helpful. Great. So with that, then what's the next step?
Yeah, then the next step is phone screen again, but this phone screen is with someone who's actually in the role you're applying for. So the TAM role, I had a phone screen with a TAM that was more senior, been to AWS for about 7 years, right? And their responsibility here is to also screen you again, right, before you go into the loop, trying to make sure that one, you can talk to humans, right? You just did the online assessment, but this time you're talking to an actual person, right? And it's mainly technical. I mean, there is behavioral questions, but you only would be asked maybe about one or at least one, two if they have time, but to mainly be testing your technical competencies, right? And to be across broad range of domains too. So compute, networking, all of that. Again, they'll be asking those questions. So they might ask you explain what a three-tier architecture is, or how do you, and you have to explain it, right? And you might think, oh, I know what a three-tier architecture is. Oh, I know what a monolith is from a microservice architecture is. But if you don't brush up on it and actually practice talking it, when you start talking, you start fumbling your words. And you be like, man, I know this stuff. Why is it not coming out? Well, they're trying to also test like, can you speak this stuff fluently? Do you understand? Can it come off your tongue? Can you talk about it in your own words? So that's also being evaluated, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. It's not only about the knowledge, but able to articulate the knowledge that you have, and that's where practice comes into picture. You do work on a daily basis, which is great, but are you able to explain them? One thing, especially for the senior roles that we look at AWS, is that are you able to communicate with C-level executives? So if there is even a technical question, are you able to explain it to a CEO without getting into technical jargons? Are you able to simplify? So those kinds of things really helps. So if like, how did you prepare for this? Like, how did you practice before getting into these interviews?
Yeah, so a couple of things actually. So first of all, I wanted to know what type of questions I'm going to get for the interviews, right? So they have public resources on the internet, so you can use Glassdoor, Blind, Levels, FY, just to see the type of questions that you might get. What's crazy is there wasn't a lot of questions. There was a lot of information on the TAM role specifically. There was a lot on solutions architect and software engineer, right? Lead code and all that stuff. But I do know the solutions architect and the TAM role, as far as technical stuff, is kind of similar. So I was using and some of those questions too. So what I did was we're talking about machine learning and AI. Was I went through all of this, right? I sipped through all the questions and I put all them in a doc and I dropped it inside ChatGPT. I told ChatGPT to categorize all these questions into behavioral and technical and break the technical into different categories like networking, compute, Linux. I have like this 20-page thing of just questions from all this public stuff, and I studied those really well. And that's a resource I'm actually like trying to maybe make it better and then like give it out to people.
That's good.
So
Doing the proper research before getting into an interview is very helpful, right? You need to be
yeah,
prepared properly. So, people do underestimate the kind of effort it is required to interview for big tech companies. You need to put in a lot of effort to be
yeah.
prepared fully.
What? Oh yeah, and then during that time, I was getting ready. Prasad also, I don't know if you guys have seen it, has this newsletter called, I have it here, Behavioral OS for Techies. As I was preparing for this interview, Prasad was dropping these new newsletters every week, and I was reading it, and I was literally preparing for the interview at the same time, using this same resource and tailoring that to prepare for the behavioral part of the interviews. It was like the couldn't have come at the perfect time. And I think anyone, regardless of if you're preparing for Amazon, the newsletter called Behavioral OS for Techies is something that everyone should like look at and focus on, because that's the type of questions you get, and being able to answer those behavioral questions so well, regardless of if you're at Amazon or not.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you for that. So, like, for just to summarize the technical interview, it's mostly, if it's a 1 hour interview, you have around 30-35 minutes of technical and then around 15-20 minutes of behavioral, 1 or 2 questions. And at the end, they ask you and they give you an opportunity to ask them questions. So, did you prepare any questions to ask them?
Yes, always prepare questions. Now, you might not be able to ask all your questions, but always ask questions that's inquisitive. Don't necessarily. People always try to maybe think of, oh, I need to ask a super crazy question to flip them off their feet. You don't need that, right? The reason why you ask the questions is for you to get information. Don't use it to try and make them think that, oh, you're asking like very complex questions. Just ask questions that you want necessarily information for. Ask about the role, ask about Amazon, ask about the person. Okay, that person has been there. Ask them about their experience on certain things. Ask them about what's next in the interview process. Just ask them mainly the questions that you would like to learn from them.
Yeah, show your curiosity. Show that you
Mhm.
actually want to be part of the team and the company, and that would be suffice. Okay, so once you gave the phone interview, what was the next step? Like, a recruiter called you saying that, hey, you passed?
Yeah, the recruiter called me saying that fast. It's so crazy because during the whole process, I was kind of removing my emotions from it, because I was like, I don't want to get too emotional and get so emotionally invested. And then they reject me. I feel so bad. So I was like, okay, just focus on each round. Once you pass, then take on the next round. Don't worry about nothing else. So when I passed that round, I'm like, oh, okay. Now we need to get ready for the final. This is the real deal now. We made it here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, tell about that final deal. How did you prepare for it? What exactly it contains?
Yeah. So for me, the depending on the level, the final round they call it a loop, because you'll be going from one interviewer to another interviewer, right, back to back to back, usually within the same day. So depending on the level, you can have between 3 to 7 interviews. I had 4 because I was an L5 role, so they were back to back to back, all 4 of them, right? So it was 4 hours straight. with 4 different interviewers. And it can be crazy and it can be daunting. But if you prepare well, the experience itself for me wasn't that bad because the interviewers were very accommodative. It was a two-way street, the way we were communicating, the way we were interviewing. It was just the preparation that was tough. So they gave me about 2.5 weeks to prepare for the loop for the final, right? That's why the whole thing took about 7 weeks. I had that 2.5 week to prepare. So within that point, the hardest part to me was preparing behavioral questions, right? Preparing for the behavioral questions. The technical, I was doing all of that already from the online assessment to the phone screen, but the behavioral is the biggest part for the loop. And that was thinking about all the experiences before and thinking about stories, which you can answer the behavioral question of tell me about a time when. So when they ask you, tell me about a time when, is based off of your experience, what have you done to exemplify this thing that we're trying to get, which is based off of the leadership principles. So I had to create a document of all the experiences that I've had and write them down and break it up into the STAR method, right? So situation, task, action, result. And I have a running page of about 17 different stories that I could tell that could exemplify those leadership principles of Amazon, which is what they're evaluating you on. So the 4 interviews I had, they have 2 technical and 2 behavioral. Now, all the interviews will have behavioral questions, but the 2 technicals are more technical questions. So the first 2 is they test you on tech breadth and tech depth. So using intuition, you can tell what that means. Tech breadth is high level questions, but broad, right? They ask you anything. I remember when I started, the interview was like, hey, we don't have time. We have a bunch of different domains to hit. So let's just go. Before we started with networking, then we started with compute, then we went to security, we went to database, then we went to like DevOps. And you may be saying that why they ask you all these, like those aren't my areas of expertise. But the thing is, as a TAM or solution architect, you're expected to know at least the fundamentals of all these areas, because these are the areas that your customers will be working on a fundamental basis. Whether you like it or not, you will be being exposed to some type of compute, some type of network, and some type of database, and some type of security. You have to know those on a fundamental way. So they will just ask you questions and then you answered it. And the thing is, because you don't have that much time, it won't be going deep in the tech breadth one. So once you answer the question according to what they want, just move to the next question. They don't allow you to talk too long. Once you get it, okay, move to the next one. Move to the next one. So that helps because I like, okay, once you answer it correctly, you don't have to spend time. Just move to the next one. Then the next one was tech.
But what if you don't know the answers? Because there are so many domains. Obviously, you cannot be master of everything. So what if you don't know the answer? How did you handle that?
Yes, that was good. So when you go to these interviews, you do not lie. You do not try and figure out something on the spot. If you don't know the answer to something, you just tell them, hey, I don't know the answer, and then they move to the next one. Because the interviewer is not there to try and trick you or try and find out what you don't know. They want to know what you do know. And they want to see you explain that and talk about it, okay? So whatever you don't know, it's better to just say you don't know than to try and lie and get it wrong, because that's worse. And just say, hey, I don't know this, but I will look it up. And I remember in my phone screen, there was a question I got about sidecar, like something about Kubernetes, right? And I was explaining it, but I couldn't explain it in a way that he wanted as far as the use case. I knew what it was, but I didn't know how it was used in Kubernetes. So I told him, hey, I don't know the answer, but I could figure it out. And after that interview, I actually found him on LinkedIn and messaged him the answer, what it was. So yeah. So
earning trust by saying that you don't know, saying no is quite a superpower, because then you stop digging hole for yourself. Because if you say something and that is wrong, it becomes a very wrong impression. So you always earn trust by saying that you don't know something, which is completely fine. As long as if the interviewer is asking you 10 questions and you say no for 10 questions, that's a different case altogether. But yeah, exactly. Always for any specific questions we don't know. Cool. Now let's move to the technical depth one.
Yeah, so technical depth, before you start the technical depth, they would know which areas is your expertise, right? You would have given that which area. They might ask you, hey, which area do you want to focus on, compute or security or networking? And I think I chose compute or something. So the main reason is they want to, focus on the areas your expertise in, and they want to dive deep into what you do know, right? So they're going to ask you not a broad level of question. They're going to ask you one question, and they're going to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper to find your limit. So finding your limit, like you might end in failure. Like the last question, they might ask you, you might not know it, but that's okay because they're trying to see how deep can you go and what is your limit, and not necessarily to see if you're incompetent or not. Just keep asking questions until you can't, and when you can't, just say, hey, this is where my depth ends. I can't answer any more questions, and okay, cool. On to the next question on something else. So they will keep asking questions, and it's not to demoralize you or make you feel like why do they keep asking, why do they keep going deeper? Well, because they want to see where your limit is. And everyone has a limit. Like you don't know everything, and it's okay. Just keep going until you can't anymore, and let them know that's it. Move on to the next question.
Yeah, we peel the onion to the layer by layer during the interview.
Yeah.
Cool. Now let's talk about the last two interviews. You are saying that they were based on behavioral.
Yes, the last two, one was the bar raiser interview, and the other one was with the hiring manager. The bar raiser is a very critical interview. It's not technical, as technical as the other one, right? But you still will be speaking technically when it comes to your experience. So the bar raiser is you will be interviewed by someone called a bar raiser. That person might not be in your organization or in the same role as just someone from outside. So this bar raiser person is someone who has been trained, gone extra training to be able to spot Amazonians and be able to see someone who raises the bar that can come into Amazon. Say something like it's 50% better than 50% of Amazonians is already working in Amazon at the point. So they're gonna ask you a lot of tell me about a time questions, right? And those questions are going to be answered based on your experience. And it has to be situational task, action, result, right? And you have to be as detailed as possible to give enough information and data for them to be able to evaluate, okay, based off of the leadership principles, is this someone who, based off of their answer, is an Amazonian? Is this someone who raises the bar? Is this someone who customer obsessive? Is this someone who is or takes ownership? Like using those as the bar to evaluate is what you're going to be evaluated on. So being able to they might only ask, depending on how long your answer is, it might be only 3 questions. Or if your answers are short, it might be 4 or 5. And they usually ask more questions after they ask the main tell me about a time question. They ask follow-up questions on whatever you give.
Yeah, yeah. So you said that you prepared almost 17 answers for behavioral, right? How many of them are actually used? Like, or did you fall short of the number of answers you prepared? Or were you having more in kitty?
So what's crazy is when you go through the process of preparing for the questions, I realized that during the interview there were because I was already used to the process, there were new stories that came up that I didn't even have in my 17. I felt like this is actually more applicable to this question, and I said it there, right? So and I never would have thought I would be able to do that, but because I went through the process of preparing, it was able to come out naturally. So yes, you can prepare, have like 10 stories, 17 stories. I almost used like almost all of them, right? I didn't repeat one, which was great, but also new ones came on the spot as I was speaking, which is risky, but at the point when the story came, I knew this is the perfect one. I have to say it. And sometimes, if it's a story that you did, if it's a time of your experience, it's not that tough to remember, right? Because you remember what you went through, you remember what you did, and you're just speaking and telling a story of something that happened that you did. So that's why I was able to like say it on the spot because I remember exactly what I did. I remember exactly how I felt during the experience.
And you said a really good point about coming up with stories naturally, and that is what I tell even my mentors that when you're preparing for an interview, live those Amazon leadership principles. And if you're interviewing for other company, read those culture, what the company culture is, and live through those. And when you live through those, and when you think about your experiences, and align them with those cultures, then even if you're coming up with a story on the spot that you remember, the way you will be articulating them will automatically showing those culture of the company, and then it will be fine.
Mhm.
So, and you have been networking with so many Amazonians, and you have come to reinvent, you have met so many people that you actually know the whole culture, and the way they think, the way
Yeah.
they react to a situation, and that really helps.
Mhm.
Cool. I think I know we are on time. So, and I see a lot of questions. Ashish, would you like to come and, if there are any pressing questions from the audience? I know we'll not be able to take all of them, but we can take few of them.
Yeah, means interesting interview, and there were a lot of questions which were we wanted to talk about. Like one of them was like, what kind of certifications you have? I think you have 9 certifications or something, right? So what your certification journey is?
Yeah, you know, I don't like talking about certification because it tends to scare people, and they're like, "Man, I have to do all of that just to get to that." No, you don't need all of these, right? So I have over 14 technical certifications, and I'm 9-time AWS certified, right? And I have a couple in Azure. But so with AWS, I have the cloud practitioner. I just got the AI practitioner like 2 weeks ago, and then I have 3 associate levels. I have a specialty, and I have a professional one. And then for Azure, I have like 2 or 3, right? So for me, it's just the reason why I have so many certifications is not necessarily to like flashy, but it is literally the medium, is literally the way in which I gather and learn information and learn different services. It's like a structured way for me to understand what's new in AWS, right? Different services I haven't touched on, different areas I haven't touched on. The first thing I go to is, okay, this certification, the path I'm going to take to study for it I'm going to gain so much information and deep dive into different areas. So that's why I have all these certs because I'm always trying to learn more.
Yeah.
That's great. And you said the right thing. Certifications are good to have. They're not must to have to get a job at AWS. I did not have any certification, like zero certification or zero AWS knowledge for that matter, when I interviewed at AWS at 2019. But it's always a plus, knowing that knowledge. And if you're getting the certification right way by actually understanding and doing the hands-on labs, it's always going to be
Mhm.
helpful.
One more question on the community builder side, if any, how that thing helped.
Oh yes, community builders that ignited my passion already, right? To be with a world group of people who are passionate about AWS, passionate about cloud, and also passionate about sharing what I call the good news of the cloud, sharing resources, sharing their knowledge on different documentations and resources for others. Because I was already doing that, but I was kind of almost doing it by myself. And then when I joined the community builders, I created this family of people who are doing the same thing. And we're in this big Slack. So you can also ask people information or questions. When I was working in my job and I have some issue with AWS, I'm trying to figure something out. I go into the Slack and say, hey, has anybody else dealt with this? And I'll get information from them. And also being a community builder, you get credits to be able to do more projects with like $500. I still haven't used my first $500 credit from the first year I was an AWS community builder. I'm still stacking up on those. So you get money to be able to do more projects. You get to interact with so many super smart minded people who know AWS inside out, who don't work with AWS, but they know so much about AWS. And you learn a lot from them. I learn a lot from being around that family of people who just love and are passionate for this stuff.
I'll take one more last question, if any, and then we'll wrap up. The question is about how you practice when you were learning AWS.
Yeah, how I practice. So number one way to practice is to do hands-on projects, right? So one is whenever you're preparing for any certification, always and only use a course that has hands-on labs, right? If the course doesn't have any hands-on lab, you don't need to be using that because you can learn as much theory as you want, but unless you know how to do something, is when you actually know it and learn it, right? So the other one what I was doing was projects. All right. So there's many projects that you can find online. There's platforms like YouTube. There's platforms like Medium. Medium has unlimited amount of projects, and you can just go there, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can go and really just copy what somebody else is doing. By copying, I mean just follow the instructions. Right. Once you get to do it yourself, you will face issues. You will hit roadblocks, and it's during those troubleshooting times of trying to figure it out is when you deeply learn something, right? I always tell someone if you're doing a project and you go from task 1 to 100 with no issues, you need to go back and redo everything and start breaking stuff up. Because if you didn't hit no roadblocks and you just went from beginning to end, your learning is such at a high level, you haven't gone deep enough. But someone else
Exactly.
who goes from task 1 to 50 and something breaks and you have to go back to task 20 to redo everything. By the time they finish, they would have known the thing inside out way more than the first person. So that's why I said.
Yeah, hands-on
Yeah,
always
and this is
always
good.
precedes whatever you learn. So yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah, and that's a good topic. That will be the topic for our next
Next
BeSA session,
session.
behavioral part. We will have a guest speaker, Eva Pinto, who has written a book on AWS cloud projects. And the topic that we are planning to get information from is that how to do cloud projects for your, or how to build your cloud portfolio for your resume. A lot of people have this question about, how can they get hands-on experience and they can show the cloud experience in their resume if they do not have it in their current job. And that's what we'll try and get the answer in the next behavioral session. But thank you, Ifeanyi, so much for joining
Yeah.
us today. It was a real pleasure speaking to you. And yeah, as always, I know we have been connected for more than a couple of years now. I'm seeing your journey and it's amazingly
It's
inspiring.
amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I
Completely
appreciate
agree.
y'all.
And yeah, let's connect on the Slack afterwards or after Monday. So all the
Yes.
best, and we'll see you around. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Have a good
Thank
week,
you.
everyone. And we would be sending the emails out, which will have the link of the things which Shashank talked about, any other references which we had. And if you are not part of Discord or LinkedIn, please join the groups so that you could be updated about whatever we are sharing. And next week we'll also be discussing a lot of new things. So thanks everyone and have a good one. Thank you.
We'll also be sharing the link to Cloud Career Journeys book and the
Yeah.
starter kit with 50% discount
Yeah,
code, and
let
you
me
will
do
be
that.
able
So
to.
I'm putting that link here. So starter kit will give you access to all the platforms like WizLabs and then Pluralsight and then other platforms too. And then you could get a hands-on lab there, learning, and then obviously story of Ifeanyi is there too. So read it and understand how his struggle was. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.